Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by the fine folks at Black Widow Bows. I'm sort of running solo. I got my buddy Jake Strohmeyer on this episode with me, kind of running as the fill-in co-host. And we got Tobie Hynes from Australia. A lot of fun. Really enjoy visiting with folks that do it a lot different than us. And, of course, Australia, those guys are awesome. So great episode, and really appreciate Tobie's time. And, you know, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, Sunday there, and it's, it was 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Saturday here. So trying to get those times lined up, never easy. Yep, getting close. I don't know, this will probably be 2 weeks from my departure into the Elk Woods, if the weather holds out. They're evacuating roads as I speak because of fire. But yeah, I Hunt Close Trad Kill 2021. Get them sent in. Get your big game kills, your trad kills into ihuntcloseofficial@gmail.com. Love seeing them. We've got some pretty cool ones. Where if you follow us on Instagram, you've seen them. Big thanks to the sponsors: the Footed Shaft, Kifaru International, Selway Archery, Backwoods Grind Coffee Company, and, of course, Black Widow Bows. If you like the show, which I'm assuming you do because that's why you're here, why don't you ring up those sponsors, send them an email, send them a text message, and say, thanks for supporting the show. Better yet, why don't you jump on there and look at their products, because they're the ones that keep the show going. Everybody hunting the early seasons, good luck. Look forward to seeing some success photos, hearing some stories. Hey, that's all I got. Enjoy the show. Have a great week. Roger out. So Jake Strohmeyer and Tobie, what's your last name?
Hynes.
Tobie Hynes. Who are you talking to there?
My dog.
Well, I didn't want to say that. That looked like a dog arm movement, but if it was a kid, I didn't want to say.
That's the wife. Getting the wife out, mate.
That's awesome. What's up, Jake?
Hey, you guys got me all right?
Got you loud and clear.
Okay, good deal.
Is it?
Good deal.
You guys have it's warm there, isn't it? It's the middle of summer over there at the moment.
It's friggin' awful. It's 100 degrees and the wind's blowing and it's smoky, and I packed up guns and paperwork and shit in case we got to evacuate.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no good.
Yeah. Hey, Jake, he sounds like he's from Australia, but right behind him's a Montana license plate, so I'm calling BS right off the bat.
There's no whitetail on the wall, though.
He uses the accent to get chicks.
Pick up girls. Yeah. Yeah. I've done it 100 times. Works great.
But what accent do you use?
I just use my Idaho accent when I'm in other places.
Oh, yeah. I'll bet that picks up the chicks.
That's what you got to do when you're bald. You can't use your good looks.
Well, you and Jake will get along. So what time is it there, bud?
7:30, I think, in the morning. 7:20 in the morning on a Sunday.
Nice. And you're part of the hunting camp down under?
Yeah, hunting podcast. Yep.
Yeah. How long you guys been doing that?
Oh, so Craig Hales started it. We haven't taken up the Zoom style of podcasting. We like to get in person. So, and that puts some big holes in your release times.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of Zoom, you froze up there for quite a while. But it's cool.
Did the audio come?
No. But it's cool. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I did one with John Andre. Can't ever say his first name, but from South Africa. So it's really cool to be able to chat with these guys, and, you know, like you and that John Andre, he was getting ready to go giraffe hunting. So, I mean, you get to talk to people that do some pretty cool stuff.
Where do you shoot a giraffe?
Stilts when you go giraffe hunting?
You don't use tree stands. What was that, Jake?
So, where do you shoot a giraffe?
In the woods.
The neck's the biggest target.
Well, he was talking about how heavy bone, big bone they are, and that all the vitals are pretty well far forward on African game. And he was talking about a frontal shot was a decent shot on him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
They'd have a pretty big scapula, wouldn't they, for the size of their legs?
Yeah, you'd think. What he said, the bottom of a full-grown giraffe, right at the bottom, like the brisket, was about 6 feet off the ground. So kind of cool.
That'd be a long shot for you if you were standing under it.
Oh, well, I guess I won't be nice to you. This is my jackwagon buddy, Jake. Yeah. So, what do you guys, is it, what are you hunting? I know there's no hunting seasons per se down there, but what do you got going on this time of year?
Well, most of us have, if we can get the access, certain areas are pretty good for hunting wild boar right now, because the wild boar over here are pretty cagey, especially the mountain boars. We get a lot of pig doggers chase them in the past, and still do now, but not near as much, so they become nocturnal. So in winter it becomes so cold that they stay in bed and sleep for most of the evening, yet in summer they're awake all night, so they're not out during the day. So a lot of guys will focus on wild boar this time of the year because they'll be out till mid-morning. You get the opportunity to find them and see them. So I'm going out on Wednesday again for that purpose, just to chase some big mountain boars. But there's still a lot. The deer are still hanging onto their antlers at the moment. They've got another couple of months before they drop them. So there's still guys shooting deer where they can. And the rooster rut's just finished as well. Or slowly going on. So rooster are one of the 7 species of, it's an Asiatic species of deer, and it's just finishing on the tail end, I think, of their rut. So a few guys have been smashing those. I haven't had the opportunity to get into roosters. I've got plenty of invites, but getting time to head off, and COVID doesn't help with being able to travel to certain areas that offer that species.
You guys got COVID going on pretty strong right now?
Yeah, they've there's a few little protests going on in Sydney, and they I think they put in the army or something to keep them under control the other day. They're not violent, no one's dying or anything, but they like to keep a tight grip on us, the government. So it's locked down completely the city region, the Greater Sydney area, and New South Wales is on the naughty books for all the other states. So we're all stuck at home.
You mentioned 7 species. Do you have all 7 species in Australia? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. It's early in the morning. The wife said to me, "Is your brain going to be working when you're doing this podcast?"
And you said, "No, it's the Stickbow Chronicles. That's not necessary."
I shoot a recurve. Do you think I even have a brain? So, what do we? You got fallow deer, red deer, sambar deer, chital or axis deer, which you guys have got down in Texas, I know. Hog deer, which I don't know if you've seen hog deer. They're tiny little deer, sort of 3 feet high, little nuggets. And then the rusa deer, and there's 2 species of rusa. There's Molokkan rusa, and then there's the other rusa. I don't know what the proper name is for the other rusa, but I think that's all of them. I've got all their cast antlers except for hog deer, so I'm looking around the room to make sure I've covered the bases. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Feel free to jump in, Jake.
Okay.
You're not here for your looks.
Yeah, well, especially not now.
I've shot over a few of those species and under them, but I haven't shot them all.
And then I came across your profile on Instagram, and I got on there, and you had trad bow hunter on there, traditional bow hunter. How long have you been shooting a stick bow?
I bought a little tiny, it's right above me, a Ben Pearson bow years ago when I was 14 and used to just see how far I could shoot the arrows, but it took a back seat for many years. I think the first thing I ever shot was a starling with it. And then I got back into bow hunting 2011. I think I got sick of shooting stuff with the gun. So, but I didn't buy a proper like recurve till 2018. South Cox was coming over to do a expo, a wild deer expo we have here, one of our biggest hunting expos. So he brought a heap of bows over, and I put in an order before he came. So he was on. My mate Pat Tidings has a little shop here. He runs he's the outlet for EXO in Australia, and he's friends with South. So South came over and brought that bow over, and I've never put it down. I think I sold my compound last year. It'd have to be 8 months ago, maybe more. So yeah, just the purist now.
How was that transition from you coming from the compound to shooting a stick bow?
I'm pretty shit all around, so it wasn't very difficult.
Picked up where you left off.
Yeah. I had suffered pretty badly from target panic with the compound, and would just hammer the trigger no matter how much. I listened to a few of Joel Turner's like podcasts and stuff, and I still just get too excited and just not good at that. So to eliminate the reaction time and just make it harder generally. Like I stepped into bow hunting at the beginning because I was one day I was standing on this. I've got a property that initiated it. I was standing on top of a fallen tree, and there's pigs nuzzling the dirt below me. And my favourite gun to hunt with used to be a lever action 30-30, and I'm like, this is shooting fish in the barrel. I've got to change. So I went and bought a second-hand bow off the internet, and then started shooting. And I didn't know anyone else who bow hunted. I only had to rely on social media. So I started out shooting with some pretty bad habits to start with, like I'll just wound the bow out. Usual dudes wind her up. She was 80 pounds, so wound her up 80 pounds, shooting with fingers at targets as far away as I could hit them. But then, this is the compound, and I sort of started doing silly things like shooting out past 40 metres, 50 metres. And then I was like, you can't do that. I got the whole point. I love hunting, like just hunting. I don't care about the killing. I don't need to kill anything. I could go out 20 times. And if I get into sub 10 metres or 10 yards of an animal every time I go out, I'm happy. So I'm like, well, I better get a recurve, because it's like putting a limiter on your car. You can't go any faster. So I've just got to limit the distance I have to get to. So then I got the recurve, and I still got target panic, and I still miss a lot. Except it's closer, so it's more heartbreaking.
Are you still learning from social media? Because I got to say, you're starting behind the 8 ball there if you're using social media.
No, I'm pretty. I know what I'm doing wrong every time. Like I have some pretty decent conversations with myself after I miss something. No, I've written across the limbs of my bow what I should do. I don't know what. I just gotta stop for a second thing. But because I can shoot quite well when I do it properly, it's just I'll forget. Most of the time, my biggest problem is I look at the animal. I don't pick a spot. Mm-hmm. And every time I look at the animal, I shoot over its back by like an inch every single time. So, and the line's perfect, but it is because I don't pick a spot. Pretty sure.
You need to giraffe hunt then.
Yeah.
Do you do most of your hunting spot and stock, or do you guys hunt out of stands?
Well, this year was the first time I put a tree stand up because I had quite a decent fallow buck. I'd seen him there 3 years running. This was the third year, and the last 2 years we'd had a drought, so he'd had poor antler development, and he'd snapped his antler off fighting. So I'm like, I'll keep an eye on him because he's nice and wide, and he showed up early for the rut, and he's a glorious looking deer. So I had to get him, and it was a horrible spot to stalk. It was on the end of a bluff, so I put a tree stand up on that. And then the neighbour's cow got in, the cows, like 30 of them, chewed out the whole pad where he's rutting, where the does were eating, shit everywhere. And then they moved down into a gully. Like the third day I was there, they moved down into a gully, and I never even got to lay eyes on him in person. I only got his 300 trail cam photos. But the rest of the time, yeah, it's spot and stalk. So,
did you grow up in a hunting family?
No, my pop loved shooting, but he never grew up near me as such. So he was probably 3 hours away. But him and his cousin used to feed the families pretty much. They were rabbit trappers, and would do roo drives. So for anyone who doesn't know what a roo drive is, they don't do them anymore. I'm not sure if they did a few recently to get rid of the numbers in the drought, but back to make it clearer for anyone listening. So Australia was pretty much scrubbed for a lot of it. And we came in and cleared a heap of country, and it's prone to droughts here. So there's no water. There's no water in the creeks. When it's not a good season, it's dry. You can't go in the bush because there is no water in most of the country. And so the white fellas come in and cleared everything and put in dams and water sources and pastures, and the kangaroo populations exploded. Like we've given them the perfect environment. They've got pasture improved paddocks, and they've got water at every access they can. So they just go nuts. They punch out young. They'll have a couple on the go. They'll have a little tiny thing the size of a bean in the bottom of their pouch, and then another one half grown, and then another one on the foot outside. So they're breeding machines. So in the old days, there'd be hundreds and thousands of them. So they'd get in a line, and it was, I think, like 10 or 12. And then the people would come along and hunt them along with shotguns. And he had a 303 neck down to a 22 at the front. So he used to shoot them out further. And my uncle would sit there with SGs and shotgun and get the close ones. He had a shotgun in one hand and a 22 semi-automatic with a 16-shot magazine in the other, and he'd be shotgunning and shooting them, and then my pop would shoot the ones out at 100 yards with the 303 22 on the run. So, yeah, he got me into shooting. In the war, he hoarded. They had rations for bullets, so he hoarded a heap of 22s. He bought thousands of them, and he would give them to me for my birthday. He'd give me 2 boxes of these bullets. They're like 40 years old, and I've still got the boxes, and I've still got a heap that some of them don't even go off. They've got full packets of just dead rounds. But, yeah, he'd give me them, and I think from age 8, I just nagged my old man, nagged him to take me shooting. So he taught me how to shoot, and then we had a 500-acre property, so he'd take me up and drop me off at the back gate, and I'd walk through, and he'd go and check the cattle, feed the cattle, and I'd walk through another part of the property and meet them at the bottom of the hill. And then after a while, they'd let me go off by myself with the gun, so I wouldn't shoot. We didn't have much to shoot. We had a few rabbits and a few kangaroos. We didn't have any pigs, or at that point in time there was no deer around. But I'd still walk up there, and punishment for me, the worst possible punishment for me in primary school was to take the gun off me for 2 whole weeks. They threatened that. I was like, I was going to die. It's the end of the world. I can imagine I'd be crying and kicking and screaming and everything. So I had to do, it only happened once. I had to do an assignment. I didn't do any homework ever. So, yeah, that my dad never came with me, so I was always self-taught all the way up. Excuse me, always. It was just me. I just wanted to do it. Didn't have any magazines, didn't have any books, didn't have any stimulation other than I needed to be out there in the bush. And, killing stuff was sort of...
So, Jake...
It sounds bad, but it's in you.
Yeah, Jake, does this sound any different than the guys that we hang around with up in North Idaho?
No, not at all. It reminds me a lot of my childhood, too, honestly.
I mean, yeah, worlds away, and we all still have the same
Yeah, it's
No
weird, isn't it?
kangaroos.
No. You probably had squirrels, though.
Yeah, lots of squirrels.
How do you guys have to? Is there like massive populations of squirrels and possums and things like that you can shoot any time of the year, or what's the legalities on them? And bandicoot, is it bandicoots? What are the not bandicoots? What's the black and white ones that look like angry pandas and little cat looking things? They live in dumpsters.
Raccoons.
Yeah, that's them.
What'd you call them? Bandihoots?
Yeah, they're bandicoots are an Australian little animal.
Oh, we've got gophers. I don't know what you call them, Jake. Whistle pigs, picket pens. What do you call them things? Ground squirrels?
Well, we have a bunch of different species of ground squirrel that are around that are up in the spring through the early summer. They go back underground, but that's what I cut my teeth on shooting as a kid. With a 22, I could go out behind my house and there'd be hillsides that would just be full of them. And you can shoot them. Well, you can shoot them all year, but like I said, those are only up out of the ground for about 3 months out of the year. And then the part of the world where Rob and I live, we don't really have like the gray squirrels and fox squirrels that folks hunt and eat back east. Not the same sort of tree squirrel culture.
I actually stayed in America for 90 days. I did one of your camp counselor exchange programs. Not exchange, whatever you call it. It was a long time ago. But yeah, I went into Bonsall in Southern California, which is near Temecula, which is inland from Oceanside, which is in between San Diego and LA. And there's squirrels everywhere there. But we had traps, so I started trapping some of them because they'd come in and eat the kids' food, or if they had anything in the bag, they'd go through it. But they were having heart attacks before you could even get them. As soon as the trap would go off, they'd have a heart attack and they'd be dead. I wanted to have a live one, but yeah.
Well,
is that normal?
Well, so you thought that you'd get more chicks if you had a live squirrel, because I got to think to the Australian accent where you were killing it right there in California with that accent.
Oh, yeah, we were anything we wanted to be down there. We went into a supermarket one day and there's a surf competition on, and the lady's like, "You guys here to surf?" "Oh, yeah, love, mate. We're top in Australia." "Oh, my son would love your autograph." It's just bullshitted our way on.
That's good stuff. So, with a stick, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I came over there to use my accent and be a serial pest, but I met my wife on the second day.
Oh, is she from the States?
No, it's just from Australia as well.
All right, we'll move on from that topic then. With a stick bow, what was your first trad kill? How'd that go?
A deer.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Must have been tall.
So, yeah. We know when you start out and you don't think about stuff too much and you get that, and the newcomers, I'm smashing the target at 20 yards and hitting the dot. And then I'm like, you just wait till you start knowing what you're doing, and then then that's when things go to shit. So I was pretty good for a couple of months there, and then started thinking about it. So, but yeah, 10 yards, a nice fallow deer. I think I got it in March, and I don't know, I took it out in April and got a deer, I think. Yeah. I didn't muck around. I didn't wait too long. I'm not gloating. I'm a pretty good hunter. I don't struggle at closing the distance. I'm just, making the shots my massive weak point.
You just mentally just kind of break down at the moment of truth?
Yeah, I don't get insanely nervous. I just rush.
Yeah.
Every time.
It's common.
When I don't rush, I just pull off excellent shots. So that's also the benefit of trad bow. You get 2 goes at most animals.
Right, Jake? You've seen that a time or two.
Yep, I have.
So
second shot's usually the good one.
So Jake and I have hunted together for decades. And I think I've killed a few things on the second arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Just a warning shot. And he's shot.
Yeah,
Oh, he shot Jake was a compound bow hunter for forever until last year was your first year with the stick, right?
Yep, it was.
Yeah. So, and I've been
and I haven't had a chance to shot some grouse last year during elk season, but I haven't actually had a shot at any big game yet, so I can't say if I'm going to fall apart or not too.
Nah, you've got you'll hold it.
Do you have a lot of time? Like as you would have spoke to other guys here, we have the opportunity that we can hunt a lot, whereas you've got, say you're going to stick bow against some big game, suddenly the pressure's way higher, unless you've got, say, 3 weeks to hunt and you're just going to shoot a doe or a cow or something like that. But how do you go with that side of things? Do you carry your compound on the back of your backpack, so you've only got 4 days and you got to fill a tag? What's the deal?
Well, at least for me, so we have Rob and I usually elk hunt at least during the rut for about 2 weeks, and so which that actually seems like a long time compared to what we used to have. But honestly, part of the reason I didn't have a lot of issues switching to a stick bow is I can think of almost no opportunities I've ever had that were outside of stick bow range, even with all the years I was dragging around a compound, just because of the terrain we hunt and how we hunt them. And so I really haven't felt like, assuming that I could shoot okay, I don't feel like I'm really leaving anything behind by not carrying that compound in the country and, sort of vegetation that we hunt in.
So it's pretty thick then by the sounds of it. Do you call them in, the elk? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, we're definitely relying during that rut on trying to call them in, or every now and then you might get some rare opportunity where you can get out in front of them. I think I've killed elk just by happening to ambush it more or less. But other than that, yeah, we're planning on calling them
in. Where we've been hunting the last 5 years, so where I live up here is super thick. If you see something, it's generally in bow range. Where we've been hunting the last 5 or 6 years is country we used to guide in, and it's much more open, but there's not a lot of game per square mile. And literally, I'll hunt starting August 30th. I'll hunt till basically December 1st, and if I put tension on the string 3 times in that span, that's been a good year. We just don't get a lot of opportunities. Speaking specifically for Idaho, you get in some places like Texas and, where they have a lot more deer, a lot more hogs and all that stuff. You're going to get a lot more shooting in, but yeah, it's a little different up here. It's just opportunities are fewer and far between. I mean, hell, you guys are shooting cats down there. I mean, you guys can shoot a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I was listening to that one you talk about Jack putting the biggest record cat in his fish tank.
Dude, I was literally on the floor friggin' with tears. I had to shut my mic off. That guy was killing me.
Yeah, I shoot. Jack makes my bowstrings too, so I've never used any other bowstrings to know if they're better or not, but they do the job for me.
So he's got the market cornered. He's got the best bowstrings you've ever shot.
Yeah, that's it. 100%. Yeah. It might also be the reason I miss all the time.
Yeah, exactly. He's got an odd number of strands. That's his trick. Did you see that stalk he just put on that goat?
The one who's sitting behind the tree.
Yeah.
Is that the one? Yeah. It's crazy.
He's done that before, though, too, didn't he? Once before? I was thinking that was an old video, but apparently it just happened. I thought he did it once before.
I've seen a few. Yeah, he's done a few like that. Yeah.
Jake, I don't know if you saw it, but he's like, somebody's videoing from behind him, and he's standing against a tree with a goat bedded on the other side of the tree.
No kidding.
Yeah, and he freaking draws his bow and just whacks it. The goat jumps up, runs about 10 feet, stands around, and just bloop, tips over.
Huh.
I stuffed up last week. I don't know if when you saw that post of that mountain boar that I shot before that, I had a boar that I'd seen a few times up there, and he was really tusky. And I saw him chasing a sow around, and then he disappeared. So where I hunt, I don't know how many. It's steep. It's not very high. It's high for here, but it's high mountain, sort of it's 1,000 meters, 3,000 feet or something like that, where these pigs are up high. And actually this boar bedded against a tree and flicked his ear. This is where nerves get you. And I stalked. I saw him bedded, so I let him sit there, and I went up and I shot another pig, and then came back and walked around to him. And I was on one side of the tree and he was on the other, and all I could see was his snout poking out, and there's these massive white ivory hooks, and my heart was just pounding. And it's in a position where you actually don't know what you can do, because you're not in a shot position, and he's sleeping there. So I thought, in this world of social media, how about I get my phone out and take a photo of his hooks? And he heard me pull my phone out and jumped up and looked straight at me. And then, I shot one straight through no man's land. I shot him high.
But you got a selfie
when I go back on Wednesday.
Yeah, you got a selfie, so that's all.
I didn't even get that. I just heard the rustle of it, and then it was like I had an arrow on the string and everything. But I just wanted to share that. I don't need it's more to share it, to say, hey, how cool is this? Like, this is awesome. Anyone who hunts these wild boars and sees that nose poking out, be like, oh, it's like the Holy Grail, just this white, curly, sharp points. It's like I'm a bit of a casty finder, and it's like when you see that nice big tip of an antler sticking out of the grass, that's sort of the same feeling. You're like that initial moment of seeing the gold, and then it all falls apart after that.
Did you see the photo I shared? I don't know, maybe a week ago. Somebody had a couple of pictures they sent into the Trad Kill 2021. He was holding up a cat in one photo, but he had a boar in another photo. Did you see that one?
Yes. Dude, I did see that. Yeah.
Those cutters were something else. I mean, that thing was nasty.
Yeah, some of them will get real pointy. Lots of guys have been cut up. Lots of guys with dogs on the flat country, they'll stand their ground, they'll come back at you. I had a sow latch a hold of my leg one day. I don't even know how she was still alive. It was a really good shot, straight through both lungs. And she dropped and fallen over, and I just walked straight over, and she jumped up and bit me straight on the leg. But once again, I just let her bite me and got my phone out and video attacking me so I could show people. And then, there's some of them. Those boars, they'll give you like 20 stitches easy. Yeah, they tear massive holes, and they can jump too. So if you try and jump over them, they'll get up and they'll get you up in the thigh or whatever, put a massive hole in you. Yeah,
Australian pigs can jump?
I don't know if their back legs get off the ground, but they do get the front up. They drink beer too. Haven't you seen that? Not long ago, a boar drank a carton of piss and then ran around and ransacked a campground.
You're kidding me.
No, Google it. It's on the internet, yeah. It's just trying to fit in, I think.
That's funny. Hey, going back to kangaroos, you guys are shooting all those things. You guys ever eat them? Any good to eat?
Yeah, there's kangaroo meat you can eat. People are put off because they're full of worms. So unless you're a landholder and you got tags for kangaroos, or you're a professional roo shooter, so you can get permission to shoot them on your own property if the numbers build up. So you got to provide land size and a head count, I think, and they say you can shoot 10 kangaroos. Otherwise, there's guys who have stainless steel or galvanized hanging racks on the back of their four-wheel drives, and they drive from property to property, and they apply to the government to have a set number of cull tags, and they'll go and shoot them and then send them to the chillers, and they become dog meat. But there is some on the shelves at the supermarket you can buy kangaroo meat, so I'm not sure if they come. I've never looked into it if they come from there, but people do eat them. But you got to, like with everything, you got to eat the young ones. So people are put off because they'll go and like deer. A lot of people that have never eaten deer in Australia have eaten a gamey deer. They eat an old one. Someone will shoot a big old buck or a big old stag, and they'll eat it and it'll taste gamey instead of shooting a yearling for a first deer. So same with wallabies or kangaroos. You got to shoot the young ones, and they're also full of worms, like big time. If you hang a deer up, kangaroo upside down and cut its throat to let it bleed out, worms will fill the ground.
Really?
Like their stomachs are full of worms. Like because I've gone out a few times when I was younger, I learned to rifle shoot really well off an old roo shooter. He taught me because you have to head shoot them above the neck. You can't shoot them any lower than like the back of the jaw or something. They don't accept them in the chillers, and you got to do a shoot test to be able to shoot them. So I went out and used to shoot a few, and when you gut them, the gut bag's just wriggling like a dead animal full of maggots. Like it's just alive. It's really off-putting if you have got a weak stomach and you pop that open and there's like 4-inch long worms and they're just everywhere. It's pretty nasty.
So are the worms in the meat as well?
No, I think they get them in their joints, but they're not in the meat.
Okay.
We don't have too many issues with an animal that you have to cook to a certain temperature to kill anything inside it. Everything here is not too bad. I'm not sure. There might be some in the tropics, but down here it's not a real problem.
So they're protected, I'm taking it, and nobody's bow hunting them things.
No, it's I think it's like $25,000 or $5,000 a fine if you get caught with one dead in the vehicle. And they're quite a small chest cavity. The kangaroos, tight ribbed. Their lungs aren't very big in the area, so I wouldn't want to shoot them with a bow. It'd be kind of for the size of their body. They got a fat ass and no top end, so there's not a lot of the area for their vitals to hit their vitals if you were shooting them. But there's the odd story gets out which makes us bow hunters look horrible, which I'm sure happens out of season with deer over there, that someone will buy a bow off eBay with using field points and shoot a kangaroo, and it'll be hopping around with an arrow through it, and then that is pretty negative publicity because then they plaster it as a bow hunter has shot this roo, and we all comment, well, if it had a broadhead on it, it would be a bow hunter, but it's not. It's some kid who's 12 years old who just got a bow and wants to go and shoot something and lives in the city, generally speaking. So, all native species are protected here except for, I think, magpie goose. You can get a tag to shoot some magpie goose in the top end. But pretty much everything else, and ducks in Victoria, we can shoot ducks, but all the other natives are protected. And that's pretty much because we've ruined the habitats, I think, and reduced the numbers on heaps of them. So,
What about buffalo? You ever go up north and hunt buffalo?
Yeah, I've shot a buffalo. It was pretty silly, actually. I went up there to work. I used to, for a little while, I had my own business doing telecommunications, so fibre optic network installations, even though I'm a mechanical tradesman. And ran into some guys at a pub, as you do, said they'll show me where to go buffalo hunting. So I went out to go buff hunting, and I had this massive white van. So I had a Mercedes Sprinter, which you guys have got as well, and they're massive, and it's 7 meters long. So I'm trying to drive through the bush in this 7 meter long Mercedes van. I ended up hitting trees and dent the side of my van and everything. But I got a buff, and I was a compound shooter back then. One of my things is to shoot it with a recurve. But I didn't realize how silly I was at the time, because I walked in onto this bull who was by himself and the mob was away, and he's just dribbling snot and frothing at the mouth and looking, and watched me walk right up to him and walk 20 meters from him. And then he starts raking the ground and snotting up, and I'm like, I just sort of realized what I was doing there. It's probably a bad idea if things went south, but I could run pretty quick. So I'm not a very good tree climber, but I can run. So probably not. I probably would have rather the other way around in that situation. But he turned broadside, and luckily I didn't hit a bone, so he didn't even know he'd been shot, and it zipped an arrow straight through him, and he walked back off to the mob and fell over sideways 70 meters later. It was like textbook. So that was my buff, and now I really want to get on with the curve. I need to get on with the curve and the scrub bull, because the scrub bull's the top of my list as far as any animal's concerned with the recurve, due to their nature. So
Is that does it take a lot for you to? I mean, I don't know where you're at geographically speaking, and licenses and stuff like that. Does it take a lot for you to go chase something like that?
It's about 3,000 kilometers for me to drive up there. So it's probably I do 2 big days if I'm going to drive to the top without family. So I do like 2 16-hour days of driving to get up there. And if you don't have private access, you'll have to pay. And it's, I think, upwards of $5,000 and up for buffalo. Yeah, it's quite annoying because it's not brought to attention or a hot topic, but Kakadu National Park. Have you heard of Kakadu? Mm-mm. It's where they filmed Crocodile Dundee, the movies, like out in the original first one. So it's just an expanse of wetlands in the tropics and escarpment country, and it's full of buffalo. And at one point, they had to shoot 6,000 buffalo to get the numbers on the decline. So if they shot 5,500, they would be stable numbers. So 6,000, and then that's still more aerial culling in other parts and ground culling in other parts of Indigenous land up there, because there's a massive swathe of Indigenous land, a bit like Indian reserves. So it's the same thing. They're under the control. Well, they're given just back to the people that have lived there for thousands of years. So they've been given the land back, and a lot of the guides hunt on their countries, and most 99% of them hunt on their countries, and a few on other privately owned parcels of land. But they'll have to cull as well, and it feels almost criminal that the government spends so much money on shooting buffalo, and if they even sold tags for $500, guys would go up there just to shoot a buff. They don't care if it's not 100 inches of horn. They would do it for 20 inches of horn just for the opportunity, because even getting there is going to cost you a plane ticket and hire a car and a few other things. So I think the big seller would be like guys from over in the States, because it's an opportunity. You don't get the opportunity to hunt buffalo. That brings the price up. So people can come over, they'll pay more and more and more to get it. So the price jacks up. And some places are probably $15,000.
So is there any sport hunting allowed at all in the national park, or is it just all those coal operations?
Yeah, no, there's no. That's total Aussie slang there. No, there's not. No, there's a small section of national park up there, but it doesn't have buffalo in it, and there's 3 units. And as a Northern Territory resident, you can gain access to those 3 units. But people probably don't want to hear this, but they're full of wild horses. I think there's some donkeys, and there's pigs, cats, dingoes as well. So when I was talking about natives, dingoes, you can shoot dingoes in most of Australia, and there's a bit of people are weird about the dingoes, but they've been here 3,500 years. Apparently, that was the first evidence of dingoes brought in. So they're not native. It's like the guy who moves into your street and he's not local until he's been there for 40 years. So it's that's what the dingoes are like.
No, you said people probably don't want to hear this, and you mentioned all the other species. Why wouldn't they want to? I'm not tracking with you there. Why wouldn't they want to hear it?
The people have we got horses that are wild. Like there's tens of thousands of wild horses and donkeys, but in the same way people have an attachment to Bambi.
Oh, I got you.
More so with humans, with our relationship to horses throughout history. Like some people, it's really genetic for them to love horses. Like they may never even seen a horse in their life, and it'll be the same with us with hunting. And the first time they meet a horse, they're like, we're meant to be together. Like, and you can understand because we've had tens of thousands of years of, well, I don't know how long they've been taming horses or using horses for assistance. We haven't been eating them. So, it's a relatively new thing to kill a horse for the purpose of control or hunting. So a lot.
I actually just yesterday had somebody send me a picture of they bow shot a horse over in Australia. It was a guy from the States, and he's like, "Hey, don't share this. you know the implications, but here." It looks pretty wild. I mean, yeah, it's not something you typically see, but I totally get it. I mean, it's a feral animal, and run an arrow through it. I'm good with it.
Currently there's massive debate. So we've got the Snowy Mountains are the highest part of Australia, which still aren't that high. Again, I can't convert it to feet, but our highest mountain's like 2,200 meters. So times that by 3, 7,000 feet or something. It's tiny. They're really tiny. And down in that country, the horses were let go years ago, and because of their hoof arrangement, they're destroying. They're overpopulated and destroying massive springs and highland pastures. Because horses are horrible for ripping they'll chew a piece of grass. As if you guys will see ranches, especially in the southern part of America, all the ranches got. Some of them might have had a bit of grass, but they haven't once they put horses in, because they'll rip a plant out from its roots. So a paddock or an area will go to crap after having a horse in it, because it'll prioritise the good grass and it'll end up pulling it out by its roots and chewing it till there's nothing left. And then you end up with just weeds. So it's pretty common here to see like a horse paddock with weeds and thistles in it, because it'll chew all the good grass out. So that happens. They'll prioritise the nice pastures and rip them out in large numbers, and then their hard hooves compact and erode banks and foul up the water, and there's big numbers of them, and because of their a horse, it's a real hard thing to sell to the government, to sell that they're going to do an aerial cull, and then as with any aerial culls, there's collateral damage, not in other species, but not everything gets shot perfectly. So
yeah, that's true.
In the past, they've found a couple of animals still alive, injured. So it's not a feasible thing to show the public, even though it might be a less chance of injuring a horse than it is of getting coronavirus. That doesn't matter. It's the one horse. So.
I like how you brought it back to the coronavirus. Good one. Horses have probably got a higher possibility of dying from it. The first place you mentioned where they filmed Crocodile Dundee, all that. Do they have crocodiles in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're talking Jack Spinks. If you heard that episode, he's a friend of the crocodile.
Yeah, they're not far, or not far, as in, if I say not far, I mean like 2 states over for you guys. But
were you talking Rhode Island and Maryland, or are you talking Idaho, Montana?
No, yeah. If you're in the Midwest, it's anywhere either side. So within 200 or 300 miles. So he's in the same. He was hunting in the similar country where it's swampy, and yeah, they can just be anywhere in that swamp country. So they just spring out of nowhere. And that whole Kakadu is full of them. So I couldn't give you the date, but a long time ago, they went in and culled and shot heaps of crocs for skins. I think they used to shoot them for skins, and they'd shoot tons. So any crocodile you see now that's 4 meters long plus is said to be a certain age, like 80 years old or something like that. Don't hold me to that age number.
So they put
old.
Yeah, so they put a big hole in the age structure when they did that.
Yeah, and so anything big is something that survived past those days of shooting the crap out of them. So, and now their numbers are just booming back again, and people are like, oh, they're not high, they're not this. We've given them wild pigs. We've given them buffalo. We've given them donkeys. We've given them scrub cattle. We've given them normal cattle. These boys are predators from the Jurassic or whatever. Like, they know what they're doing. You dangle a carrot in front of them, it's not a temptation. They're going to get it. So we're just feeding these guys. So definitely going to see massive number increases. So yeah, you won't catch me wading through the water up there, not unless There'd be no. I'd have to be pretty desperate, to go into the water in the top end.
So what's your setup?
Some people did.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No,
I was going to say some people they don't tell you. So I worked in another part of the top end in Western Australia, which is a similar remote community, and my uncle's pretty wild. He worked in that national park for 6 years, and then he went over and worked in this other place. And there's these tidal water holes that fill up from the king tide, and as the end of the dry season was coming, they were drying up. So he's like, we better. The fish are all going to die in there, and they're barramundi and other fish. And so he said, we'll catch them all. We'll get in there and drag a net, which is highly bloody illegal, but we'll drag net them, and then we'll put them all in tubs, and then we're going to take them to another water hole so we can still fish for them. So we're going to save a couple of hundred fish. Anyway, any saltwater crocs in here? No saltwater crocs in there. So first drag through, there's something in the net, turns out. It's a 5-foot salty. So they're up to water, chest deep, dragging this net through, trying to catch these fish. So he just tied a rope around its snout and tied it to a tree so he could see where it was, left it in the water. There's nothing bigger in there. Another few freshies, another 4 freshies or something. But, yeah, it's like don't ever believe people either. Just do your thing and don't go in the water.
That was kind of where Jack's Banks was at.
Yeah, he had to go across a patch of dirt, didn't he? And did you envisage one of those cartoons where they run along the backs of the crocodiles to try
Absolutely.
and get across
I
the
didn't
water?
have to envision it. It was a Zoom call, and I could see the cartoon. He was so animated. I was dying. So what's your setup? How many pounds you shooting? What kind of arrows you shooting?
I try to support the locals with arrows, so I've always had local arrows. I've just swapped to a different type now, but I'm shooting I keep forgetting the name of it, so I've got to go and tell you.
I'm guessing it's an Australian name.
What? No, it's a stalker. I just keep forgetting what make a stalker is. It's the FX Coyote by Sal. I don't know if you can see it. It was in a maple burl in green, this bow, and I saw the very first one South made with a green maple burl, and I was like, I got to have that colour. So then I got him to make that one, which was the second one he ever made in the maple burl. It dyed in green, which was awesome. So it's 54 pound, but 55 at my draw length. So it does everything I need. And I don't shoot that heavy FOC. I just run a little bit out the front. I'm not a tech head at all. If an arrow flies straight out to 20, I'm happy. So I can shoot bare shaft at 20 and they don't wiggle everywhere. So I'm happy. And I shoot a 350 spine at 500, which a lot of people might say is a bit heavy, but it works for me, and try to maintain that kinetic energy so I don't lose it. The 400s wobble a bit as they come out. But I was shooting about 500 grains of arrow, a bit over 500, but yeah, my arrow maker stopped making his, so I've got a different ones, but I lose about a grain per inch with the arrow weight, and the outsert's a bit lighter. So I'm going to see how they go, but I was getting pass-throughs with most of them unless I hit the offside shoulder. So I haven't seen that. The last time I went shooting, I didn't get a pass-through. I don't think I hit any ribs, but yeah, I've got to look at upping the weight a little bit more so I can get back over that 500 grains, because it just seems to be a nice mix with my bow. They shoot really well out of it.
So you mentioned outserts. Are you shoot the skinnies then?
Yeah, I love them. I don't know what it is, but I think it's also less resistance when you shoot them because you got a big broadhead punching through, and then after that there's just minimal drag. So I got a couple of just regular, I don't even know what they were, gold tips or whatever, bigger diameter, and they don't go in the same weight. They don't go into my targets as far. And I think it's all to do with the surface area drag on the arrow. And it's physics. It has to be doing something. So I like the skinny shafts. Yeah.
Somebody sent me. I think they were out of Australia, like a Widowmaker or something. Arrow shafts. That sound right?
Yep, Widowmaker by Michael Baker, I think it is. He's been one of the first arrow makers in Australia, so he's been doing it for years. And he makes broadheads as well. So he makes the solid one piece 2-blade and 3-blade broadheads.
I like the skinnies. I like the micros, but I was getting into a lot of the aluminum outserts, and that was like the first thing to go was the aluminum, outsert, bending it or breaking it. So
yeah, I end up going with 100 grain. The combination I found perfect was it was 100 grain stainless steel outsert, which when I started shooting them, they did actually bend slightly. So I got the guy to make them 5 mil because I was shooting his arrows, and I don't know if you've seen too much. If something doesn't work, I just tell them. Like, I'm not gonna. There's people out there who spruik every bit of bloody equipment they pick up's the best thing they've ever used.
Oh, yeah.
Me, if anyone says, "Can you try this?" I'm like, "Give it to me for 6 months, and if it's shit, I'll tell you it's shit." So I said to him straight away, I said, they got to be longer. So I think he made them 5 or 10 mil longer, so a quarter of an inch longer over the shaft, that the shaft bedded in further, and made all the difference. That was it, and made them a narrower diameter, but that because they tapered off where they slid over the shaft, he actually continued them a bit longer at the thicker diameter where they slid over the shaft, and that's the weak point. So it's really good. He went off the feedback and changed it, but they were ideal. I liked that stainless. I never bent an outsert, and I didn't snap the arrow at the base of the outsert either. I just used to lose them when I missed.
The damn deer were too short.
Yeah. There's supposed to be an animal on the end of that arrow, but there never is. So, yeah,
you got about 15. Jake, what do you got, about 15 minutes?
Yeah, about 15 left for me. One question that I did have is predators down there, like for your different deer populations. Do the dingoes, did the dingoes kill them, or do they have any other sort of natural predator?
No, there's nothing except dingoes. So in that area where the dingoes are one of the spots they're protected, there's a fella called Josh Rogers, and I've been hunting with Josh. He's got quite a lot of knowledge on sambar deer, and he's got some trail camera pics because they will pack up. Like they're pack animals. Guys down there have had them follow them in packs, whether it's inquisitive or whether they're hungry. We can't speak dingo, so we don't know. But people will be stalked by him. So he's got some really good trail camera footage. It'd have to be the first trail camera footage or very close to the first trail camera footage of a dingo pack taking down a deer. So the deer will run the water, the sambar deer, but they're also they're in an area that pick the bloody toughest deer there is. So the sambar deer are Asiatic species. So they've evolved being chased by tigers. So they've got the highest bone density, and they're just a big deer. So they're really tough as well, but they end up cornering them in a patch of water. And yeah, they'll take them down. So they do a fair bit, but the problem is that they'll kill everything else first before they attack the deer. So if I get dingoes move through my hunting area, there will be wallabies and kangaroos, and the goats will disappear. And they'll just take out all the smaller animals, the easier pick as you would, and then they'll focus on the deer after that. But everywhere else in Australia, other than that specific area, it's nowhere near as common for them to attack the deer.
So do you feel like with the number of hunters that you have there that folks are able to do a pretty good job of managing the deer population, or does the government still have to cull deer in places as well? Yeah,
it's a pretty hot topic that everyone says we can do a better job, but a lot of guys. The problem is the trophy hunting aspect of it. People are too scared. So I still rifle shoot. I go out and shoot does with a gun because it's the best. Well, I want to eat. Like, come on. So I shoot them with a gun because I'm not going to go. I've never actually shot a doe or a female deer with a bow. I don't feel there's the challenge for me as much. It's probably easy if I actually went out to do it. But anyway, I shoot them with a gun. So I'll go out and shoot female deer with the gun for food and population control. And people just don't do that. There's so many guys who be similar to yourselves who only get, or not you guys, you sound like you get a bit of hunting, but they only get a small window of opportunity a year, so they'll go out and trophy hunt, and they won't go and just roll a heap of deer. It seems like a waste, but there's tens of thousands of them. So I was out during the rut, and there's a section of national park one property over from me, and they didn't tell anyone. They just went through. They didn't tell any of the property owners, and next thing you know, it's World War III. There's just just shooting going on left, right, and centre, and there's not that many animals in that national park. Like, you can glass into it from all properties, and there's just not that many deer in there, or pigs, and they would have shot 200 shells in this park, and it happened everywhere. But we're not allowed into these sections of national park, and there's large swathes of national park in New South Wales that are landlocked. Some of them you need permission to even access them on foot because they have vulnerable vegetation, which is a load of crap because bushwalkers aren't going to affect the vegetation, and bushfires go through these parks every other year. So we won't ever as hunters be able to make an impact if we're not given the freedom to make an impact. So swathes of national park breeding up goats and pigs and deer. The deer in pockets, like they expanded, they were released, and then in the fallout of the deer farms in certain areas, guys just cut fences and let the deer out. And then because of our droughts, deer won't spread that much. Not the fallow and reds do a little, sambar will spread, but a lot of the others, they're packs. They hang out together in mobs. They don't really like spreading, especially the fallow, which is one of the most prolific deer here. Only on a good season will only go a kilometre, extend their range by a kilometre if their population outgrows their food supply. And they've done assessments on it to prove this. But we get a drought and suddenly that population is really good and stable, but we get a drought and there is zero food. They will just blow out completely and cover miles. And some of them don't come back, and then establishes a new population somewhere else and then get a good season and they'll stay there, and then more and more and more. But there's all through Victoria, there's a lot you can hunt in national parks, but it's extremely mountainous and thick, like really thick scrub. And then they're creating more parks or limiting hunting in areas in New South Wales, Queensland. So if anyone doesn't know, we've got 7 states and territories in the country, and say 5 or 6 of those have actual deer populations. The eastern states have got the highest populations of deer, and in the north, Queensland, you can't hunt on any state forest or any public land. And majority of the deer are all on public land and state forest in the southeast, and just massive, hundreds and hundreds of deer, and no one goes in there. A lot of it's government-owned land that you're not allowed on at all. You can't go bushwalking in there or anything. So
you just said government. You said government land that you're not allowed to get on.
Yeah, it's like it'd be water board country, so it's a catchment for water supply.
Oh, okay.
So if you shoot an animal and leave it in the gully or whatever, they can bring in rules about recovery on that sort of thing, like full recovery. Don't leave it in a water course, things like that. But the fish piss in our water. What's the matter with one dead deer in a gully upstream? Like, there's duck shitting in it every day. So it doesn't matter. But we have massive amounts of land that we aren't allowed on, and with the attitudes of a lot of hunters, which we won't change it. But we are outweighed with the guys who do want to change it, the guys who will go out there and do pest control and just shoot to keep numbers down. Because sometimes, unfortunately, we got to shoot them just to shoot them, to make that's the sacrifice to keep the sport alive. We have to just get the numbers down, and it's hard if you get a deer hunting property and it's got like 5 deer and you got to shoot some so the property owners see you shooting them, and you got to keep the numbers down, but people won't shoot them. They won't. They'll try and keep them alive and bolster the population. And then the next door neighbour's doing the same and the other, and then it just becomes a massive amount of deer, and then the government steps in and says we've got to do an aerial cull, and then it kicks up a massive stink. So
it's so foreign. Yeah. It's so foreign, and Jake will speak to that. I mean, that's like the exact opposite of what we deal with out here. But
as far as the numbers of game,
well,
or
just
the access issue.
Well, not so much the access issue, but just the fact that you have to kill critters you have to kill them to keep everybody happy. And when you're not killing them, and numbers get out of hand, then it causes a stink.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is the complete opposite. I guess that's what happens from, being in the southern hemisphere. Everything's backwards, I guess, because that's a tenet of public land in the United States, is that it's open access to people for the most part. I mean, there's very few restrictions, at least access wise on public land and in the States. So yeah, it's interesting to hear that. And so can the government come on to private land in Australia and cull deer against the landowner's will?
No, they that's what caused a big rift as well recently. So the area I grew up in didn't have any deer when I was younger, and over the last 30 years, the numbers have just exploded, which is great for hunters. It's one of the most well-known areas in it, and has held some of the top 10 deer species in fallow and reds for as long as we can remember, holding current Australian free-range records held from my area for fallow deer. And they've had a series of aerial culls. So as the drought hit, that was the worst thing. The deer came out of the higher mountainous country and down into the cattle country more so, and the sheep country, and farmers started seeing them more because they were coming out during the day. You used to just, you could see them, they'd come out at night and go into the pastures, but they'd destroy swathes of pastures. So they culled them. They had to get permission off every farmer, had to have a letter, or some of them got a visit and they requested permission. And then some said no, they weren't going to let them on because they make 20 grand a year off hunters. So paying for access, but then the chopper pushed the deer off that paid access property over the fences onto the property they can shoot on, and shot them once they crossed the fence. And then we also have, so red deer are a pretty sought after deer, and they grow really big here when they let to get to maturity. When they get to 10 years here, they're monstrous red deer. A lot of farmers, say 5 or 10 out of 30 properties or 40 properties said don't shoot the red deer, but then they shot the red deer on their property as well. So the second round or the third round of chopper culls lost tons of properties just for doing that. And there was just masses of dead animals, and then the pig numbers came up because the pigs started eating all the carcasses, and then farmers or their wives went up and saw all the waste and the smell, and it was sort of off-putting. But when they get hunters come in, this is not across the board. Hunters will come in, they take a heap of meat out, they're happy, they give them money, they reduce the numbers, they come back and back and back. They get to see some fresh faces. Some of these farmers don't socialise a lot, so when the hunters come up, it's nice for them. So, but they had to get permission to go on. And then even in the management plan for the national parks and wildlife states that they need to communicate with the farmers and people who border on their property before taking any action. They didn't communicate this year when they did an aerial cull. They didn't ring any of them, and they did their aerial culling in the peak rut, in the middle of April, which is our peak fallow and red rut. And we do have, as you will be aware, of people who do hunt in national park without permission. Or not allowed to hunt in national park.
You got a grin on your face when you say that.
We were all born criminals. So, not all of us, only the ones who came over in chains. So, we're a bit of rebellious against the government. Some people, anyway, they did this aerial cull in the peak of the rut, and they have caught every year. There's people getting caught in the national park hunting, rifle shooters, people with dogs, people with bows. They're getting caught every single year. There's people caught there, and they still knowingly did a chopper cull without notifying any of the boundary properties and without telling the public. They went in and did a chopper cull. Now, regardless of those people allowed to be there or not, that was directly putting lives at danger of people that know, like we all know that people go into the national park. It's sort of, it's not allowed, but it's still going to happen in the same way you say you're not allowed to knock off at 7-Eleven, but people still do it. So they went and did it. Peak rut, went in with a helicopter, and half of the national parks around here in country that's so rugged, there is no boundaries. So there'll be guys hunting deer, and it could be the difference between the fence location because it's rock. It's like the Rockies, like putting a fence through there. They had to drill post holes on some of these ridges with hand drill them, and then they've hammered the star picket in, or they've wired a heap of rocks together and they're weighing the fence post down. That's how it's standing there. So they fenced country around here for the landscape. So the chopper's going off GPS mapping, and these guys, other like legit hunters, could think that they're hunting in their private property and they're 50 meters over the boundary, and a chopper swings over above them because they're shooting off a GPS. It's really, really not a smart move. But it wasn't done by the local national parks. It was done by head office down in Sydney, and it was a really recent, very stupid move. Yeah, and they picked the rut because out of spite for hunters, one, and because they knew it'd piss it off. I'm pretty sure they did it because they knew it'd piss us off because it's easiest time. It's when all the deer clump up together, and all the does clump up together, and all the bucks, and they're all in the same little patches of dirt. So they went to town on them.
Lucky nobody got killed.
Yeah, there's probably not that many people in there, but even just putting one person's life at risk, yeah, even though they're not doing the right thing, but it's still a thing. Like I said, I was 2 properties over and we didn't even know about it. And then a mate texted me from the town that they lifted off, and he said, I don't know what those choppers are doing, but I reckon they're going to shoot some stuff. And the next thing you know, yeah, it's just guns blaring. And I had a stalk blown from that. I was stalking up on a good deer, so I don't know how to weigh it up. So it's a good 220-point buck for a fallow, which is the benchmark. So it's like a 160-point whitetail or something, you know what I mean? Like it was a good deer. So, or maybe a 180. Yeah, it was a good deer. So, and I was like, you bastards. So, and then I videoed them and put it on social media.
Oh man. Well,
you must keep your phone a lot handier than I do.
There's lots of people who don't get to go out, and I get lots of feedback on my account saying that they like my stories, and I don't do it for followers. I do it to share the experience, and because I'm always hunting alone. Like 90% of the time I'm alone, so I like to capture it and pass it on, and yeah, I don't do it. I haven't got any like sponsors where I go, oh, this is the best stuff I'm shooting. I've had a couple of offers, but I'm like, no, I like doing what I'm doing. So all my social media is for the guys I know on there. And I've met probably a couple of thousand of my followers that are mates. They're not followers, they're mates who hang out with me on social media. And I like to show them what I'm up to and what's going down in the bush. So that's why I'm always videoing. I'm like, this is cool. This is cool. Someone else has to see this. So that's why my phone's always handy. I like the video stuff.
well, where can people follow you?
I'm at Hunt Mountains. It's what did you ever like start an Instagram page and go, oh, that name's shit?
Some of the names are awesome on Instagram. Clown Biscuit, Sandwich Eater. I mean, some of them are awesome. Yeah. So I'm at Hunt Mountains. Hunt _ mountains. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah. That's an awesome looking hog you got there. What you posted July 7th. Some nasty looking cutters there.
Yeah, that was an example of them being out in the middle of the day in winter. It was like 10 a.m. in the morning, and they shouldn't have been out. But I actually cut them off, and then I put a trail camera up. And to get the trail camera out of my pack, I undid the strap, and I left the hooks in the paddock.
Oh, no.
On the mountain.
No.
And I was like, they could be my best hooks. And
those are gnarly, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I was shocked by them. I looked at the photos and like, oh, he's actually bigger than I thought. So he's a good sized pig. Yeah.
You wouldn't want them ripping through your pant leg.
No, they're not just going to scratch up the outside of the skin. They're going to leave you with a nice puncture wound. Yeah.
So mountains.
Yeah.
And plug your podcast.
Oh yeah. So Hunting Camp Downunder. There's about four. We keep changing between guys, but there's 3 or 4 of us that do a variety of podcasts. 90% Aussies. We've had a few of his guys from America on there, and I think we've got a South African guy we want to get on, and we've done one with Blood Origins and a few other guys. Yeah, so it's not, like I said, we need more content. We've both got lists of people to talk to, but I probably should start doing some Zoom ones. I'm not real tech savvy, but yeah, that Hunting Camp Downunder, it's called, and it's on all your usual spots that you can get a podcast, and there's an array of hosts because we're all different hosts, so it's different types of conversations. And if anyone's following me on Instagram, I do have a potty mouth, and I do share some inappropriate memes. So
well, that's pretty much standard. But I think not just for Aussies.
yeah. No, and that anyway. Yeah. Oh well.
Well, Jake, you got anything else?
No, I don't think so. It was that was super interesting. Really cool to hear about all the issues and different way things happen down on the other side of the planet. So it was great talking to you.
Yeah, same to you guys. I did a lot more talking than you guys, but
that's the way it's supposed to be. Nobody
always gets hey, there's a few little tidbits of information there I get from you guys that every time you talk to other hunters, it's always a good time. Unless you're confronting them on your block of land, then that's difficult.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah. Jake and I have had a few confrontations on public land.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to avoid talking to other hunters, but Rob usually swings the other way.
Swings the other way. You're just getting back at me for less.
Oh, did you? I didn't run into a guy. I stalked a guy. I paralleled above him on my block, and then slid down right on top of him. And he was a pretty well-known hunter, not socially, but in the other circles. Yeah, and he was like, he was shocked that. He felt so devastated that he'd been not caught, but that I'd actually snuck up on him. That was more of a shock. And I knew who he was. I'm like, you better get your camera out and show me the deer you shot the other week.
some one-upsmanship, some gamesmanship.
He wasn't there. He wasn't there to shoot everything. So,
well, if you listen to many of the episodes. Jake is the guy that was with me with the infamous run-in with Manny, the Snyderite. It was Jake was with me that day. Yeah. That's what Jake's referring to specifically.
I'll have to have a look through your list and find the one.
Yeah, that's an epic story. Anyways, man, glad we connected.
Yeah. No, I'm always keen to talk.
That's why we do podcasts, right?
Yeah.
And tell your wife
exactly,
you did it. Yeah, tell your wife you hit it out of the park.
I wouldn't want to lie to her.
Why I lied?
Not about that.
Nicely played, Jake. I'm still intrigued by the Montana license plates. You come all the way to swipe that. Come all the way over here to swipe that.
Yeah. So when I was I'll just to finish up there. When I went over to summer camp, we actually bought a van. So this is a GMC Safari van down the road, and in California, because there's no rust, cars aren't cheap. So we got the old, cars are cheap in the States. So like $100 will get you a car. No, this one was like the cheapest one I could find. It was $2,000. And I offered him $1,200 being the Aussie and that. And then they're all like, no, you got to pay full price. I'm like, no, you just watch this. I've been there a week. He'll ring me back. And he did. He rang me back and said, oh, yeah, you can take it. So everyone was like, I got a good reputation from then on. And I sprayed the Aussie flag on the front bonnet of this GMC Safari van. And after summer camp, so at summer camp, I was teaching riflery, did a civilian marksmanship qualification while I was there. And I was teaching riflery and archery at the time. And I really didn't have a vested interest in archery. It was weird. So teaching kids how to do it. And that was in 2007. So when we used to, we just pray a squirrel ran across the back of the rifle range or the archery range, but they were smarter than that up there. And ended up having to shoot lizards, like those little lizards that had crawled across the back of the rifle range.
Probably protected, no doubt. It is California.
Everything's protected, even the gum trees that come from Australia. Yeah. So,
well,
and then, oh, sorry, go on.
No, I'm good. I just want to stop you because Alan Kidner will listen to this and he will message me and say, yep, it takes an Aussie to go over to the States and show everybody how to shoot a rifle. So that's preemptive right there. So it's not going to count, Alan.
What I might be able to tell you is we had a shoot off at the end of our training, and there was two Marines and a reserve Marine there, and my brother-in-law outshot us all.
Nice.
And put 10 in the 10 ring, 10 in the 10 ring on those little 20-yard targets. So he showed us all up. So it was quite funny. One of the guys got kicked out of summer camp, one of the Marines, because he's sitting there quoting Borat while he's shooting at the target. It was quite bad. He was straight out of camp. But after that, we jumped in that van and we did 6,000 miles, went through 13 states, all through America. It was awesome. Yeah, I'd never appreciated the game species in America till I'd traveled around, and I think I drove along the Snake River up in Montana, and there was like elk everywhere. It just started frothing from then on.
Nice. Well, you ever get over here, give us a holler.
Oh, I'm keen. That's on the other top of the list is a recurve elk. I don't care how much older it is than a raghorn, but I just want to get an elk under my belt with the recurve in the States, and it'd probably end up being over the counter tag because I keep forgetting to put in for points. So
yeah. Well, again, Tobie, it's fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You bet, man. Awesome. Jake, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet. Yep, good talking to you, Tobie, and Rob. You know, it's been the usual.
The pain in the neck. The pain in the neck. All right, man.
See ya.